don't try and follow the mayor's light jokes. Where Corloria agus Carda is more an honor domsa a bhean seo an nuamh chun fécant ar an oscail sína seo úntaach Teach McGarry. Minister Jan, Mayor Jerry, councillors, friends and colleagues, it's a great honour for me to be here today for the opening of this wonderful extension to McGarry House. It's made all the more special by the presence of the eponymous Joe McGarry, referred to already, after whom this fine facility is named. I first met Joe about 12 years ago in London, and it was my first exposure to what was called Novas overtures over there. And he was introduced as chairman of Novas and was charged with bringing us around. He had a bus at the time, to recall Joe, the Ashling bus, another little project that he was running at the time, trying to bring people back, permanently repatriate them in Ireland. And as we got to know each other over the couple of days we were there, his story unfolded. And I listened to it again and watched it again recently, and that wonderful TV program was produced last year called Men of Arlington. And it told the story of an immigrant working in the buildings, drinking hard and living hard, and drinking everything he had essentially. He received help and refuge in Arlington House, which was and is, I think, the biggest refuge in Europe, one of its claims to fame, and subsequently turned his life around, and I'm sure there'll be more of that anon, and actually became chairman of the group, a group that was international and had turnover of millions of pounds per year. And there was a man of the streets running the show, and I think hope springs eternal is the term that comes to mind. What shone through was getting to know Joe over the years, and I'll talk more about his Irish experience in a moment, was his great integrity, his passion for helping his fellow man. And I think he epitomised, along with many others that are here today, the wonderful ethos that first certainly attracted me to Novas, of nobody is beyond help. Prior to the year 2000, Minister Jan will be familiar with this, and the publication of the government strategy, Homeless and Integrated Strategy. Homeless was very much a neglected area, with little, in fact, if the truth be told, no funding apart from what people raised. I recall at the time I went down to meet Jerry White, not sure if he's here today, another great champion of homelessness, with a spreadsheet with all the jobs across the top to find out who was doing what in St. John's Hostel, and started off by asking him who was doing the security. Jerry, he said that would be me. And I said, what about the management? And he said, well, that would be me as well. Cooking, well, I cook a couple of days a week. Administration, and it was a one-man show, and he was working part-time, and that just kind of signified the way things were run at the time. And we approached Novas again in 2002, determined that we would have something up before Christmas, and it was that man McGarry again that came to our aid. With a couple of days to spare, we got the place open. There was nothing inside there. Cooperation of Vincent Paul, we moved the elderly population down to Killery Lodge, and Joe had it open with himself and 4 or 5 people who otherwise would have been on the street, and actually slept on the floor in the nights leading up to Christmas 2002. I have no doubt in my mind that lives were saved that winter and every winter beyond that, and that the quality of life that people had was seriously improved by the opening of that building. This was were victims of their own success, and St. John's is no longer suitable, and they moved here to what is now the magnificent facility that you will see or have seen already in 2010. And again, my colleague from City Council, Kieran Nahan, had a huge part to play in that, and I'd like to pay tribute to him. Joe had long since departed for Australia, as was mentioned earlier on, and Novas had a new boss. There was a new sheriff in town called Michael Goulding. And I have to say, without Michael's vision and tenacity, we wouldn't be where we are today looking at this fantastic facility. He is absolutely relentless. The dog with a bone is the term that comes to mind. Doesn't understand the meaning of the word no unless he's actually saying it. And he simply never stops. Now that this project is finished, he is ready to start the next one, which is the complete rebuild. The Brother Russell Home, Minister Jan, has been involved in helping us to secure funding for that, and for which we're very grateful. Someone described Michael as the Duracell bunny. In the ads, he just never stops. But he's a great person to work with, and again, like Joe, a man of great integrity, and he epitomises and lives on a daily basis the ethos nobody is beyond help. Finally, what you see in front of you today is a magnificent new facility. It came through the cooperation of many agencies such as the City Council, the Department of the Environment, and of course Novas. It provides a fabulous facility to our homeless people, but more importantly, I think it offers them hope. I wish Michael and Anne and Helen and everyone, all the staff who work here, every success in the future. And to the service users, people who find themselves to be homeless for one reason or another, I think if you look to Joe McGarry as a role model, you'll see that anything is possible. Promote it.
You know, many years ago, I was in London, Camden Town. I was a chronic alcoholic, was homeless for many years. And somehow I found my way back to my mother's home in County Antrim. Very, very drunk. And I woke up the following morning. Basically, I couldn't remember actually how I got there. I woke up in my mother's home and no memory of actually how I got back to Antrim or anything like that. And I got up in the morning and my mother was sitting at the table. And my mother's a sort of no-nonsense Belfast woman. And she looked at me and she said, "Look at the state of you," she said. "Look at you, look at the state of you. What are you doing to yourself?" she said. "Why are you dragging the McGarry name," she said, "through the gutters and sewers of London?" What she said to me. Now, as I stand here today in this building, it's got McGarry over the door, and I've asked someone to take a photograph of that. I'm going back to Antrim tomorrow. My Belfast mother is 90 years of age, and believe me, she's not senile, a long way from it. So hopefully I'll have that photograph to show. And I have enough nephews and nieces up around Antrim and Belfast who'll be able to blow it up so she can see it properly. Anyway, I'm very privileged to be here. I'm very privileged to come back from Australia. I'm so pleased to see this happen in Limerick City. It's about time Limerick City took a stretch on the rest of them. And this is it. This is a stretch on the rest of them. It's a personal opinion. You know, when I first was coming to Limerick City, people were going, "You're going where?" I said, "I'm going to Limerick City," and all of this is going on. Not in the sector of Tony, in different people were going on. That's why it's so important to me personally that this city has put together this. We can thank everyone. We can thank the City Council, we can thank the health boards, we can thank the Department of the Environment, we can thank everyone in this city, the spirit of everyone in this city, which brings us all around to thank God who worked through all of us, every single one of us, to put this here, to put it all here, to work through government, work through the whole thing, the spirit of this building, to get to here. is magnificent. I am so proud that this has happened from the point when we first came there in 2002, when we set up the outreach, in Limerick City. Then we moved to John Square. And we managed to get the thing, and even then, I remember Morris Howard was here, we were doing our best to try and beat Dublin to get the first hostel sort of, it was a big thing then, a hostel where you could drink in Ireland, The way we looked at it was, why should we bar you because you drink? We'll accept you and your problem. We'll accept both of you. If you have a problem, or if you run a service, I think you should accept the human being. And if the human being has a problem, I think we should accept the problem as well. And if we are well enough to work with another human being to try and address that problem. There's a lot of other people here, so I leave it at that. Thank you all very much. I'm deeply indebted to all of you.
I first came to know about Novas in 2003 after I lost my flat down in Cork. I invited 3 fellas back to my flat and they slashed me with a vodka bottle and I had to get 7 staples on the head. After that I lost my flat and a probation officer in Cork got me in Arlington Lodge in Tralee, run by Novas. They were very kind to me in Arlington Lodge. Always listened to me and never turned me away. They took me and a few other lads to Liverpool playing soccer for the homeless, which was great crack. After that I ended up in Bridgeland House in John Square. It was also ran by Novas before we moved to McGarry House. I drank there every day for over a year in Bridgeland House. Staff, they were very good to me. They listened to me, talked to me, went to doctor's appointments with me, even went to court with me to support me when I was in trouble. In 2005 I decided to go off the drink because I was getting into too much trouble after it. Staff in Bridgeland House were very supportive of me. When I said I wanted to give up the drink, they moved me up to their dry house in the Dublin Road, St. Pat's. Then they gave me volunteer work in the hostel, where I was come down every day and clean the hostel and help out in the kitchen. I felt great doing a day's work and it kept me sober and clean. I can honestly say today that without the great help I got from Novas, that I would be dead or doing life in prison. In 2006, a locum position came up in Bridgeland House. I done an interview and I got it. Then in 2007, a full-time job came up and I done the interview and I got it. I've been working here since and I love it. I love helping people and giving something back. Novas have been so good to me as a resident and an employee. And I know my mum and dad are very grateful to Novas too for the help they have given me. About 2 years ago I had a slip again and I could have lost my job in the apartment, but I didn't. Novas helped get me into a treatment centre and even came to see me in the treatment centre. I'm so grateful to them for that. I'm now clean 17 months and I'm going to my aftercare and play kickboxing and working away, and it's all thanks to Novas. Novas do great work with people and never turn anybody around. Thanks very much.
Mayor, Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, McGarry House is a unique McGarry House is a unique milestone for Novas initiatives and people who are homeless in the Midwest region. And as you know, this has taken a long journey. And I remember back in 2005, my first visit to Bridgeland House, it certainly, although Joe would say this was the first step, I tell you, Bridgeland House was not fit for purpose in 2005 when I visited. I recollect there was sort of bodily fluids coming down walls and stuff like that, and people were expected to live in this type of accommodation. So it was my mission. A search for alternative locations started immediately. And many places and buildings were inspected. I got to know Limerick better than many locals. However, we didn't make any progress. Then in 2007, I remember it, this day, the 28th of May 2007, I met Kieran Nahan. He was appointed earlier as Director of Housing. And one of the first things, the amazing thing that I kind of discovered, one of the first things he did was visit Bridgeland House. So he knew where I was coming from. Then in 2000, and then the urgency was introduced. After even more searching, we eventually sourced these premises. Our problems are not over, but after much perseverance and patience, we've arrived at our goal. We've moved then here in 2009. So again, a lot of refurbishment was required. So for the past few years, the service has worked from the building site. So I must thank the staff for their patience and dedications in having to endure kind of living here during the building site. And again, in August of this year, the building was finished. So here we are at last. So many people have contributed to this achievement. Too many to mention here, but I want to particularly thank Kieran Nahan. I know people have seen in the past, but Kieran has been absolutely brilliant. He's a bit like God, you know, he reveals himself and yet he lies hidden. You know? And it's the kind of situation that, you know, when you'd be under pressure, when you'd be struggling and you'd be saying, Jesus, what are we going to do now? You kind of ring up Kieran and say, look, calm down, Michael, there's another way around this, and you've come up with a way forward. To Shane Doherty, Shane has been excellent as well in helping us with our funding submission, and to Gerard Dillon for their enthusiastic and unflinching support. Like, without these three individuals, we most certainly would not be here today. So McGarry House, as it is now, it provides temporary supported accommodation for 34 individuals, and it provides long-term supported for 46 individuals. So we have now 70 units of accommodation for the same price. Value for money, Minister. For the same price we were doing back in Bridgeton House. It's basically the same funding.
I first of all just want to pay tribute to Joe McGarry, because he is the person who was the inspiration for all of this. And I think in talking about his own life, all I can say is Mrs. McGarry in Belfast can be very, very proud of her son today. I also want to refer to Jimmy, because I think his testimony as well was an indication of how somebody can get hold of their life and their problems and turn it around themselves with the help of people like the people here in Novas. And he is a great credit to his parents as well, who are here with us today. And I think what both of their stories does illustrate is what Joe talked about, is that Novas takes you with your problem. And nobody chooses to be homeless. You become homeless for a variety of reasons that happen, things that happen in your life, of one kind or another, and they're not all the same, but there can be many different things that happen in people's lives that they end up in situations where they need a service like this. And I too would like to refer to some of the organisations and individuals, because I know how much work has gone into this. Joe, obviously himself, Michael and the other Michael, and indeed the other Michael McCoy there, who has kept me in touch all the time with what's going on. The HSE, Tony and Morris and their colleagues. And I suppose I particularly would like to pay tribute to the City Council staff, because I know and have worked with them so much over the years, and particularly Kieran Nahan, Gerard Dillon and Shane Doherty, and also David Mead and Rob Louth in the homeless unit. I would also just refer to Kathleen down there, because she's been following me around for the last few months. Kathleen is from the Irish Council for Social Housing, and almost everywhere I go, Kathleen is there as well. So the Irish Council for Social Housing is an important organisation as well, that, if you like, lobbies for organisations like Novas and works with the sector. And that sector is becoming more and more important in terms of the provision of services, because unfortunately we are pretty short of money now. And the old idea, I suppose, that the public sector provided for everything just doesn't work anymore in a lot of situations. And the fact, for example, that JP McManus has contributed very handsomely to the Brother Russell development, and that others have given of their time and of their money in terms of the work that Novas does, and that the other voluntary bodies do, is an indication that we have to work together to get more from less in whatever way we can. Having said that, I'm delighted that my department has been able to provide, I think it's over 12 million euros for this development under the CAS scheme. And we have also, Michael, you're definitely in there for the Brother Russell scheme. You're included in the announcement, the public announcement, with regard to the forthcoming programme that I will be overseeing over the next couple of years. I visited Brother Russell as well, and it most undoubtedly needs the work that is planned for it. I also had reason to be in the Bunbury Street unit last Sunday week, I think it was, because of a particular problem with a particular client. And I have to just pay tribute to that service as well. It's people who find themselves in trouble, particularly out of hours, weekends, etc. That they have some place to go, and the outreach service as well, going around to people out in the streets. I want to acknowledge the presence of the Gardaí as well, because they're very important in terms of all of this work that's been done. It is very much around partnership. It is about people working together, organisations working together, and it is about the human touch. And I think all the individuals that were named here today, whoever they work for, are people who have the heart for this kind of work, who actually do care about the people who find themselves in difficult positions. And it's particularly evident with the staff here in Novas. And I suppose the role of somebody like me really is just to keep the Duracell Bunny and all these people charged, their batteries charged, so that they can keep doing what they're doing, because it is a tremendous service that they're providing. I just as well would just like to talk a little bit about our policy on homelessness, because it's my job to develop policy as well, and we did make a commitment in the programme for government that we would review policy on homeless, but it is very much what we would call housing led, or housing first, and it is about providing people with a home, and providing people with the support that they need at the various stages. But there was an old system, I don't want to use too much jargon, it's what they call the stairway system, whereby if you got to one stage, then you deserved to get to the next stage, etc., etc. And it wasn't about taking the person with their problem, it was about getting the person to kind of deal with something before they could get on to get to something else. And that really doesn't work. So when we talk about a housing first policy on homelessness, what we're talking about is that you take the person with whatever situation they're in, you give them the support, the services that they need at that time, and that will be available here and in the Novas services. But you support them then to move on to whatever is appropriate to them, and that's the other service that's here now, which is the supported long-term housing. And then, people like Rob and David in the homeless service, they would assist people in terms of, whenever people are ready to maybe go into private rented accommodation, go into social housing with the council or whatever. So it's a holistic approach, if you like. It's not about expecting people to achieve certain steps along the way before they get help. And so it is about taking people as they are and having all of the kind of supports that they need to provide them with a good life, with happiness, and with a place where they feel safe and comfortable. And whether that's a short term for the moment or whether it's more longer term, that's what the services are about, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So as Minister, I'm just delighted that I'm part of this. I've seen it, I suppose, moving from John Square down to here, and then the various stages of the development. And the fact that we're here at the official opening is a fantastic credit to everybody. Particularly pay credit to all of the staff and also to the clients, because you're the people who are cooperating with the people who are working here and who are paid here, and also the volunteers, everybody who's volunteered and is involved in the Novas initiative.
3, 2, 1. Look at me.